Hey guys, this is the Prince of Mastodon, and I'm doing a commentary video for Empire Total War multiplayer. This is an Ottoman versus Austrian battle. I'm in command of the Ottomans, and my opponent is Charlie 8484, and he's in command of the Austrians. Alright, you can see I'm massing my cavalry on my left flank here. I saw my opponent's provincial cavalry here, one squadron of them, and I decided to harass him with my superior gunfire on this range. So I've got my Hussars and my Delhi horsemen taking out these provincial cavalry. Anyways, down the center, he launched some Jaegers and some line infantry, but when he saw the range of my Hussars, he ran backwards. And he's going to form a defensive line. Also, on my right flank, he got his provincial cavalry a little too close to my dudes, and I scared him off with some gunfire. He lost 2 horses in that little skirmish there. Alright, let's go look at my army before the battle starts. I have 6 units of cavalry, and they are my Delhi horsemen. And these are basically like mounted riflemen or something. Then I have 5 units of Hussars. I have 2 of them over here. And I've got 1 in my center and 2 on my right flank. Then my infantry force consists of 5 units of light infantry, and they are the Israelis. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but it's definitely not Israelis. But here they are. Get these cool looking outfits. Alright, my opponent, as you know, he formed into a defensive line after that little skirmish at the beginning. He has 3 units of these Jaegers, and they have pretty good range, but he didn't use them for that purpose. Then he has, 4 units of line infantry here. And when he ran backwards, he had his men facing the wrong way here. Then he has 2 units of pikemen, and I was kind of glad about that, because that means I have more firepower than he does. But in a melee fight, he's going to have a pretty good time against me. Then he has 2 squadrons of provincial cavalry, 1 squadron of a general's bodyguard right here. Then he has 2 teams of 12-pounder howitzer foot artillery. Alright, so I have brought in my center against my opponent, and I'm already using my Hussars to harass his main infantry body. And he's hitting my dudes as I advance with his line infantry against my line infantry. Not sure why it's so quiet. I'm going to make it louder. Alright, so I'm coming down on his right flank with my cavalry, and I'm using my Hussars to screen my cavalry, because I saw his Jaegers firing at me. Now I'm going to use my cavalry as infantry, basically. I'm going to use their gunfire to harass his Jaeger from the flank. And I'm going to keep up this steady pressure on my opponent, and I'm not going to let go of this initiative that I have. You can see all the gunfire now. And all my horses are now firing at his 1 unit of Jaeger. And on my opponent's right flank, I have kept up this pressure. I've got my, 2 units of Hussars going up against his general's bodyguard. But my Hussars are getting creamed. Now I'm bringing in my line infantry to engage his dudes at melee range. And he has brought some of his line infantry to face that way. And that was part of my objective, was to get his center to open up. Now I brought in my center to use, hopefully, superior firepower to destroy his center. That was my hope anyways. Now look at the situation. I'm completely surrounding my opponent. Well, except for this part right here, because he's actually crushing my dudes in this flank. But the aim here was just to force his army to face different directions, and then crush him in concentrated attacks at certain points of his army. Now I'm bringing in my my Delhi horsemen to hit his guys from the flanks and from the rears whenever I can. And this is just keeping up the pressure. Here I dash into his Jaeger, and his Jaeger are running away now. So the good thing about these mounted infantry dudes is that I can charge when I want to. Alright, here my opponent charged with his pikes into my Hussars. So I think his pikes are going to win that matchup here. But now I'm bringing up my line infantry to hit his pikes from the rear with gunfire. And in the center, I was kind of disappointed with my line infantry. Like, you could see him just routing because they have very poor accuracy. So his superior skilled line infantry drove out at least some of my troops in the center. But I'm using my superior mobility of my Delhi horsemen to shoot his dudes from the rears and flanks wherever I can. So this is kind of like Turkish blitzkrieg here. Alright, here's his pikes. He drove out my Hussars, but now I've got his pikes surrounded here, and he doesn't know which way to face. He's going to engage in melee range, But now I've got my Daily Horseman shooting at his dudes from behind, and I'm gonna charge his pikes from behind. So hammer and anvil stuff. That's the way they took out pikes the ancient times, and that's the way they're gonna do it in this time period too. Alright, down the right flank he crushed my attempts to attack his right, or attack his left, which was my right. But that's fine. I accomplished my objective of splitting up his army. Here I'm going to charge at melee range, and I'm just going to bog his dudes down, while the rest of my troops hopefully use their superior mobility to use flanking fire against these guys. Like, look at the movement of my cavalry. That's my objective here. It's going to use my cavalry's swiftness to strike his dudes from the rears and flanks. And this is a very opportunistic type of warfare. And look at this solid mass of line infantry. He has plans of charging, but he doesn't know where to charge yet because I'm all over. The bulk of his army is down here now. I have been cutting up his army up here. Now he's going to charge in where he can. And here he's charging in with the general's bodyguard against my Daily Horsemen. And I don't think my Daily Horsemen are really that great at melee range, but that's fine. I'm going to hold his attention here, while I use the rest of my army here to launch. Well, here they got bogged down in this infantry fight. But once I'm done with these dudes here, these Jaegers, I can turn and use my Daily Horsemen to strike his guys from the flanks again. Alright, so here I'm committed to a charge. They're against the line infantry. And this is where the giant brawl is going to start. All kinds of action here. So look at this range. I mean, this battle now, it's gotten really crazy. I'm not sure why I said range, but I did. And I'm not going to bother even editing that out. Okay. So at this point I thought my opponent was going to win because he's using his Austrians in melee. But now his guys are starting to break here. And at melee range his guys are probably better, because I didn't bring any of my funky Ottoman units, which were actually specialized for melee fighting. I just brought conventional style troops. Except for my cavalry. My cavalry is basically like mounted riflemen. But look at this morale here. These guys are like completely saddened by the loss of his troops up here. Now I'm going to commit to this giant charge here against his line infantry, because I see those blinking flags, but what I didn't realize, it was actually his pikemen blinking, not his line infantry. But now his line infantry is blinking, which means they are depressed, or demoralized. I like saying depressed because it makes them look sadder. But anyways, I'm charging into these guys here. So yeah, this is an earlier period battle, and I'm not using any of the Ottomans, like their exotic units. I just wanted to fight like conventionally, because I didn't really trust their their melee range. I'm not really comfortable with them anyways, so I'm just gonna fight them with the Ottomans with European style, or at least conventional style. Okay, now I'm taking my free cavalry. I'm going to launch hammer and anvil strikes here against his line infantry, and that is going to rout them. And finally, I have the clear-cut edge, and now these guys are routing too. That was a very close battle. I'm not very familiar with these Ottomans. Hopefully I can learn them in the future. But as you guys know, my favorites are the French and the Americans. Anyways, that's a victory for me. I killed 912 of my opponents, and I lost 806 of my own guys. Charlie 8484 killed 719 of my troops, and he lost 1019. Good game to Charlie 8484.